Before we get started, I wanted to tell you about our 2026 reading challenge. It's a simple, nostalgic way to be intentional with your reading and to dream about the year ahead. One book per month with options for you as an individual or for your family. If you love lists and cozy reading plans, this one's for you. You can download the challenge now. Head on over to www.bookishflights.com/read/2026 reading challenge, or just click the link in the show notes. Happy reading! Hi, I'm Cara Infante, and this is Bookish Flights, a podcast where we tell our stories through our favorite books. Each episode features a bookish guest where we will talk about reading, life, and the seasons we're in, all through a thoughtfully paired book flight of recommendations for you. If you're looking for meaningful book recommendations and a space to slow down, you're in the right place. In today's episode, I am chatting with Susan May Warren. Susan is the USA best-selling, award-winning novelist with nearly 2 million books sold. She's lived all over the world, including Russia, and has penned over 100 novels, writing across genres such as contemporary and historical romances, romantic suspense, and thrillers. Susan's works have achieved USA Today, ECPA, and CBA bestseller status, won numerous awards, and have been translated into 8 languages. She is a renowned writing coach, founder of Novel Academy, and author of the popular writing method, The Story Equation. She lives in Minnesota and Florida with her handsome hubby, has 2 messy labradoodles, loves good wine, traveling, and hanging out with her husband, 4 kids and their spouses, and her 5 grandchildren. Welcome to the show, Susan.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, it's an honor to have you. You have written so many novels that I feel like I'm in awe of getting to interview you today. So thank
Oh,
you.
you're so sweet. Yeah, well, it's
Well,
glad, I've been in the industry since the dawn of time. So it's, after a while you rack up a few novels.
yeah. And I think, just recently, I mean, this is very small in comparison. I just hit 175 episodes, and I just was thinking, that's what happens when you just continue to consistently
Yeah.
show up. And is it similar for your journey of writing?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I'm always just like, okay, I got this now done, and I go to the next one. I always say that, there are those people that write 1 or 2 novels and bam, they're instant bestsellers. But most people write a lot of books and they grow their readership and grow and grow and grow. Debbie Maycomer was chatting once with me, and she says, and she said this before to other people too, I'm a 30-year overnight success. And, she's a really good example of just keep doing the work, right? And I have a philosophy that, a great career, especially in writing, is, quality, quantity, and quickness. So you learn how to write a great story, then you put a lot of them out, and then you put them out more frequently. And then, that sort of builds on each other and it becomes kind of a snowball. And yeah, but I'm very grateful. I've just been very grateful to be on this journey, and it's just been a really fun journey. It's writing is a wonderful, wonderful career, especially for a mom. So
Yeah.
it's been great.
Yeah, you have the flexibility, right? I think that we all crave to be with our children and have time to be with them too.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been great.
Well, have you ever, in your journey as a writer, have there ever been moments where you're like, I don't know where to go with this next story, or you're like the writer's block people speak of?
Well, yes. I mean, obviously you run into that because you are pushing forward and having to think of,
Yeah.
what's the next scene. I have kind of a strange method. I always plot my stories beforehand and then I tell myself the story, where I write down the synopsis of everything that's going to happen. And I don't always stay right on that synopsis,
Sure.
but I generally have a roadmap. So it's like, if you're going to take a trip and you're saying, I'm going from Minnesota to Florida and I'm going to drive there, there's probably 4 ways that you could go, 4 different highways, whatever. And you could stop
Yeah.
along the way and you could stop at different places. So, you sort of plan your route, but, depending on what accidents are in the way and what you want to see, you might take a side trip, but eventually you're going to get to Florida, right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I plot my stories. I have a blueprint, so to speak, and I tell myself the story ahead of time so that I have a synopsis and I know where I'm going, so that when I show up every day at the computer, I just pull up, sort of like what's happening next,
Yeah.
and then I start noodling on that and saying, okay, what does this scene look like? Who's in this scene? Why are they there? So I don't really have writer's block per se. Sometimes I get a little stymied on what's the spiritual truth that I'm putting in, or what's the right reaction to this particular moment. And I have to sit down and ruminate on that, or I have to pray and ask God
Yeah.
for the right, spiritual
Yeah.
thread. But for the most part, once I start a story, I pretty much just plow my way through it, and then I go back and edit it. But it works that way best, I think, if I can just keep moving forward and kind of, and sometimes I'll put like a little asterisk and say, enter story world here, or fix this emotion, or whatever. But I just like to keep going because momentum breeds momentum, and that's a
Yeah.
good choice for me as a writer.
Yeah. I know you work with a lot of writers yourself as well. And do you find that everybody kind of has to find their own process in doing this for writing?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always tell people I teach something called the story equation, which is sort of a way to look at the characters, figure out what their problems are, what their core issues are, and then pull pieces out of that to create a plot. And then the plot is very organic to the growth of the character. And I think a great
Yeah.
story really is about the transformation of a character from, one place to another, one lie he believes to the truth that sets him free. But the external plot is the framework that that journey sits on, right? And so we
Yeah.
need to, connect the internal and the external. So this is what I've developed for myself, and I've
Hmm.
been teaching this for many, many years. But I also have pulled, from a lot of other writing instructors, James Scott Bell, Donald Moss, just a lot of people that have informed the way I'm, put a story together or a scene together or whatever. And I encourage authors to do the same. They should be widely read. They should
Yeah.
know, excuse me, they should know who's teaching what and how they, are putting the story together. I mean, stories are stories. They're, usually pretty standard, and they have people that, use different terminology for different parts of the story.
Yeah.
But you have different nuances of how to get there, or maybe you put something into your story that you didn't have before because this particular, writer gave you this idea. So it's good to always be researching. I'm always listening to
Yeah.
other writing teachers and always reading books and thinking, how do I make this journey for my readers stronger and better? How do I bring the story more to life on the page? So yeah, so I do think you should develop your own way of doing it. I am a big proponent of telling yourself the story so that
Yeah.
you can see how the story will, sort of flow. You can kind of see if there's, holes in the story or if the journey works. But and also because that's how you get paid as an author, is to finish your book and to turn it in
Yes.
or to start selling it or whatever. And a lot of people that sort of pants their way through, struggle, I think, sometimes to have a timeline, a deadline that
Yeah.
they can then turn stuff out quickly because they just don't know how long the story is going to take or whatever. And I'm not saying, of course, there's some beautiful, wonderful pantsers out there, people that
Yeah.
just, follow the trail, and that's just great. Um, I do think that for younger writers, having a framework helps them to have the confidence that they're going to
Yeah.
finish a story and also, get it done on a timely manner.
Yeah. Absolutely. I could see where that's. I'm not a writer myself. Actually, I came to this as a reader, but and as a military spouse, like we with moving all the time, I'm like, I need something that moves with us, like not that I have to
Yeah.
change my job all the time every time we move.
Yeah.
But I could see where that absolutely makes sense. And I think there's a sense from readers that like, oh, we read, then we know how to write, and absolutely not. I don't think. I think it's something you have to teach yourself, right? Like any new thing. So,
Absolutely. I've always laughed I shouldn't say laughed, but I've always, there's these, people that you meet. 80% of people want to write a book. It's the
yes.
reality. And so you meet so many people and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to write a book someday." And you're like, "Okay, so you're going to invest in learning?" "Oh, no, it just is going to come out of me." And you're like, what do you do now?" "Oh, I'm a neuro, like a surgeon or a
Yeah.
lawyer or an accountant." And you're like, and I'm thinking to myself, I wouldn't just dive into surgery not really knowing what I was doing, And
Yeah.
so, and I realize it's different. Obviously novel writing is not life-threatening. And so,
Yeah.
really, but anything that you want to do well, you have to learn it. It's
Yeah.
that's the reality of
And
it and how
continue
you
to
go
learn it.
about
Like
and
as you were
continue to learn
saying.
it.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So, yes, I think that there are, like lawyers, for example, have already learned how to write to some extent and learn how to make an argument. So they
Yeah.
can bring a lot of that to the page. But, there's still nuances on how to actually construct a scene that evokes emotion, that makes people feel like they're involved in the scene, and all of these kind of things. And these are learned skills.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're here today to discuss your novel that came out this week, Track of Courage. For listeners that might not have been able to pick it up today, can you tell them a little bit about it?
Yes, this is a really, really fun story.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a departure for me because I haven't written a lot of stories that feature dogs.
Okay.
And so when my editor and I sat down to talk about my next, iteration of Alaskan novels, I'm really big into search and rescue teams and series and this sort of thing. She says, "Why don't you do a dog series like with canines?" And I was like, "Oh, sure." Not realizing how hard it is actually to write a good dog book. And we can talk about that in a second, but
Yeah.
and so that was a little bit different. But this is a fun series about a search and rescue team that is going to employ a few rescuers that have dogs. But most importantly, this is the first book in that particular series. And what I did is I took a character that was a minor character in a previous series and made him my first character in this particular series. And he's an ex-cop. He was wounded in a previous book. And so it's about his journey to coming back to who he is and who he was. And we can talk about that in a little bit too. But
Sure.
but the story basically is about a gal who goes to Alaska looking for her birth mother. She is a pop singer to the tune of like, Taylor Swift, and she's kind of undercover. She gets on a plane after maybe not necessarily succeeding, and the plane is hijacked. So if you've seen the new Mark Wahlberg movie, I was all like, "Oh, that's kind of it." So
Yeah.
the plane is hijacked, and it crashes, and all the people on the plane disperse. And in this first book, our hero Dawson goes after with his dog goes after one of the people, one of the passengers searching for her, and it happens to be this gal. So it's what happens when he finds her, why the plane went down, who is after her, and it's the journey of what he does to protect her, to survive the blizzard that follows them, and then bring them all the way through the journey to where they're supposed to be at the end. So the short of it basically is about a woman goes missing after a plane crash. A wounded police hero goes after her using his dog that may or may not be a canine SAR dog, and what happens when both of them trust in each other to survive the Alaskan wilderness.
Yeah.
So
I
it's a
can't
very
tell
fun book.
you, I mean, like, I don't often get through books that fast because of motherhood, right? Like, just the age of my
Yeah,
children, we're in this busy, and I know it's only going to get busier. So naively, I'm saying that, but my kids still
yeah,
need me quite a bit. But I
yeah.
walked around my house with this book and I finished it within a day because I'm like, I have to know
Oh,
what's going to happen. So I
wow,
was like
that's
wandering.
great.
So anytime I could sneak 5 minutes, I could read a
Oh, that's awesome.
So I
That's awesome.
loved it. It was great. So
Oh, thank you so much. It was
yeah,
really fun to read. It was hard to write though because of the dog thing.
I was going
Like
to
I
ask you
was,
about that. Okay.
yeah. So in a great canine book, in my opinion. I don't know. I've read a lot of them, and it seems to me that the dog is another character, and he has to have his own journey.
Yeah.
So my dogs all have problems that they need to solve throughout the story, and it's not your typical. Sort of like, is he going to find the girl kind of problem? Each dog has their own issue, and it
Yeah.
has something to do with the handler that they're working with. And so all of the dog's issues are also related to the handler's issue. And in this particular situation, my hero, Dawson, was in a traumatic event and he is struggling with how does he find himself after this
Yeah.
traumatic event. He was really wounded. And actually, you see that in the previous book. He was shot in the knee, so he ended up getting a knee replacement. And he's like, "Who am I after this?" And I know that sounds
Yeah.
crazy, but I had a knee replacement, and I was like, "Who am I after this?" It was
Yeah.
crazy. It was a really tough one. So anyway, and then the dog is not like it doesn't respond to him like he thinks it should. And the dog seems super needy and all these other kind of things. Well, come to find out there's a reason for that. And so it was fun to bring them on this journey together. When I first wrote the book though, I gave it to a girlfriend
Okay.
and who is really, really good at the dog. She raises seeing eye dogs and
Oh,
she's
wow. Okay.
she's just really good at dogs.
Yeah.
And she read it and she says, "Oh, we need to dig deeper." So, and she usually loves my stories. And so she's like, "As usual, I love it, but no, we got to go
Yeah.
deeper." And I had done a lot of research, but that was when I really realized, okay, I got to go deeper into this dog's journey. And so that's why, so then I did. And then I became sort of this dog person that was like, oh, dogs are so interesting. And then I got addicted to like dog videos of training dogs on YouTube and then military dogs. Anyway,
Yeah.
I have a whole, sort of channel
It's your
algorithm. It just
rabbit
comes
hole you went down.
along. Exactly.
The
So, but
dog
that was
hole,
it was
maybe.
yeah, a dog hole, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, it was fun though, and I learned a lot about dogs. I realized how bad of a dog owner I am because my dogs just are disasters. They run everywhere, they control my life, they do whatever they want. So I'm a terrible dog owner, and so I channeled sort of the wannabe dog handler and tried to come up with what would a dog handler actually do. And I did talk to some dog handlers and got some real research actually under my belt so I could write
Yeah.
it correctly. But yeah, yeah.
I
So
think that's such an important message, what you're saying for even the younger writers, as you were referring to, is that even though you've written over 100 novels, you're still having to, like get feedback and dig
mhm,
deeper or do different research. And like, there's always something you're learning, no matter where you're at in your journey.
absolutely. I think that's the fun part about being a novelist. I'm really great at dinner parties. I can talk about all sorts of crazy stuff. I like have surface knowledge across like so many things. Now, don't get me deep on some of these things, but everything from cryptocurrency to, how's a nuclear bomb made,
Yeah.
and I don't really know that very well, but or even like how do you ride how do you ride a bull? How do you, I don't know. What am I learning in this book that I just wrote? I'm trying to think
Yeah.
even what book I'm writing. How would you trace someone's cell phone records, for
Mm.
example,
Yeah.
things like that. So, and then I've got all sorts of crazy like knowledge about settings, like, oh, in this location, this happened in this location. And did you know over here, so anyway, yeah, so I'm great at dinner parties because I can talk
Yeah.
about all sorts of surfacey things, but but don't dig too deep.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's fun. You have to learn a lot when you're writing, and I tend to be one of those people where I research just enough to get me going, and then as I'm going through the book, I'll stop and I'll research that, and I might have to go back and fix
Yeah.
something, but then I'll just keep going, and yeah, so I do learn a lot along the way.
Yeah. Was there anything that you learned about yourself through writing this novel?
Well, I think a lot of the journey for me was about how did how did Dawson, who felt completely just shattered after this terrible failure had and after the physical wound, how did he find his way back to seeing who he was again? So for me, I struggled a lot with when I got my knee surgery. So I was in an accident. I had my knee replaced as a result of it, and
Yeah.
that really took me out.
Yeah.
And I realized that I was a high achiever. I liked doing a lot of things. My plate was always very big and very full. And after that, my plate had to go, I
Yeah.
had to shrink quite a bit, and I had to take a ton off of it because I was spending so much time in physical therapy. And that was hard for me because I didn't value necessarily the smaller plate. I just valued the big plate. And I think in Dawson's journey, he starts to value things that he didn't value before. He was a high achiever, this sort of thing. And and he's forced to slow down. He's
Yeah.
forced to focus. He's forced to accept his limitations and say, okay, maybe that's okay that I'm, not as capable as I was, and maybe my life can look different, but still is good. And I
Yeah.
think that's part of the journey when your life changes like that, whether it's a physical thing or, tragedy or just even a change of life, where, kids are leaving or whatever, your life can look different, but it can still be happy.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what my heroine realizes as well. She's a big power star, but she's got this secret. She's got two secrets, and she really starts to come to the realization that it's okay if life looks a little bit different than she envisioned it. It can still be good and happy and fruitful. And so I
Yeah.
think that was one of the things that I learned in this. I kind of channeled my inner frustrated, wounded person, and then came out on the other side going, okay, it's all right if life looks different. It's okay. I'm not going to ski anymore. Okay, that's fine. We will survive. We'll do other fun things, whatever. So yeah. So I think making peace with
Yeah.
the seasons of your life, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's something to be said too, right? Like I in those moments we'll question God a little bit. Like, well, why?
Hmm.
Why am I
Hmm.
here? Or why is this happening? And I think to your point of like his path is better and he just knows that, right? Like he knows our end goal for our life, but we don't know what
Yeah.
that is. So we are like,
Right.
well, in the moment we're like sitting here frustrated. But if we just
Right.
trust that he has a plan, it'll turn out better than we expected, I
Yeah,
think. Yeah.
I think you're so right. And you trust and then you say, I accept this plan.
Yeah.
How do I bloom in this smaller space? Right.
Yeah.
And what is it that you want me to do? Is it simply I'm sitting on the sofa praying for my kids because I can't get up and do anything else?
Yeah.
Okay, that's valuable,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Yeah, and it seems small compared to, like you said, your big plate, but it doesn't mean it's not any less important. I think
Right.
it's,
Exactly.
but
Exactly. So yeah, so that's kind of what I learned and it gave me a new place of peace,
yeah.
as I started writing, maybe slowing down a little bit, maybe not being quite so crazy in my writing life. I've always been a just keep it I call myself a sled dog. I just keep on running and
Get
then,
the work
but now
done.
I was a
Yeah.
wounded sled dog on the side of the road.
Yeah.
Maybe this sled dog just sits around. I don't know.
Well,
So
what is your
yeah.
wish for readers? What do you hope they'll take away when they pick up Track of Courage?
I hope they're encouraged that God sees them,
Yeah.
and He sees their brokenness, and that He sees the things that they want, but maybe they think they should have a certain way, but God knows, like you said, better. I think we all come to the table with sort of a wish list of what we'd
Yeah.
like, and God says, "Trust me," like you said, "I will give you what you need."
Yeah.
And you will know me better as a result of it, and you will know how much I love you as a result of that. A lot of times we want one thing for our lives, and God says, mm-mm, it's going to look different, and it's still going to be good. And also, I think the other thing is that we dealt with a little bit of regret and mistakes in this novel with both Dawson and
Yeah.
Keeley, and they're kind of hiding some of their failures of the past, and we can't hide anything from God,
Yeah.
and we're just hurting ourselves when we hide things, right? When we try to hide,
Yeah.
we can't hide. So we're just
Yeah.
hurting ourselves. And when we're willing to bring that to the light and to give them to the Lord, He says, "Okay, now watch what I will do."
Yeah.
And I really love that part of the journey for both of them. That God basically says, "I have something so much better for you." If you will just trust me in all of this. But sometimes it takes a blizzard and an accident and being lost in the woods and, stripping you down to nothing except trusting God for you to actually see that
Yeah.
He is there and He's going to provide and He's going to direct and
Well, and I
protect.
don't think you change when you're comfortable, right? So I think
No,
that's
right.
exactly it. When you get to the point where like there is nothing else, I finally will surrender. And I'm imagining God's like, oh yay, finally, like you finally understand what I was trying to teach you.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but
It's good.
there's something to be said about that, right? We won't
Right.
change if things are going status quo. We're not going to do it.
Although I hope we learn faster because it's like, okay, I don't want to be stuck in a blizzard with a busted knee out in the middle of nowhere with bad guys chasing me for me to realize that maybe I need God's help.
Yeah, maybe I
Like
won't need
maybe
that
next
severe.
time, right, right, next time, maybe just, I don't know, run out of gas.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And then I'll recognize, oh, this is where I
oh,
change.
yes, right, exactly.
Yeah, it's a journey for sure for all of
It
us
is, it
and the
is, for
characters.
sure. Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing about Track of Courage. Let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about who
Okay.
you are as a reader. So, what genres
Hmm.
do you enjoy reading?
Well, I am kind of a wide reader. I like to
Okay.
read all sorts of things. I think my favorite genre is contemporary romance. I love that. I write in that. And I
Yeah.
like contemporary adventure a lot. I'm not as much into the psychological thrillers as I am like, and they're off into the woods and running around and getting chased. That's kind of
Yeah.
my stories, and is what I read too. So I do love those kind of things. But I also like big, sweeping contemporary romances, something that's full and that I can really, sort of sink my teeth into and just really enjoy the cast of characters and that sort of thing. So, and then I read historical story. I really read widely. I have a very well used library card. I unfortunately doesn't carry my library doesn't carry a lot of Christian fiction, so I purchase a
Yes.
lot of that, but then I usually supplement with some library stuff too. So that's really fun. I read usually two books, maybe three books a week. I'm a
Yeah.
voracious reader. It's just a way for me to relax in the evening. There's not always a lot of great TV on, so
Yeah.
I like to read.
Yeah, that was usually my other question is how in your busyness do you find time to read? But you're just
Yeah.
making time for it, right? That's your
Yeah,
unwinding.
yeah. My husband's watching, sailing videos on YouTube, and I'm in my room reading, for the last hour
Yeah.
of the day or something like that. So, yeah, it's
Yeah.
just a way that it helps me relax. And to be honest, as an author who's pushing words out of my brain all day long,
Yeah.
I need to put words back in my brain. And so you do that by reading, good stuff that
Sure.
you can, seed your brain with some good thoughts. And that's another thing why I'm so picky about what I read, because I'm like, I don't want any garbage in there. I'm just going to put in good stuff that kind of, like I said, seeds my imagination in my
Well, I
words.
also think of, what we consume is what like our soul takes in, right? Like we're protecting our own hearts. We're the gatekeeper of it. And so I think there's
Yep,
something to be said about your choice in what you consume. And whether that's
absolutely.
videos or on social media or books or TV, whatever that is, you have the
Yep,
choice in what you're putting in. And that's, you know,
yep. That's
affecting you.
exactly right. I always think it's interesting, if I open up like Instagram or something and I see what the algorithm is giving me, and I'm like, oh, this is what's been on my mind lately. Okay, this is interesting. It kind of
Yeah.
gives you a little bit of an internal check, and you go, ooh, I probably need to go back to, those videos
The
about
dog
making homemade
videos.
bread or something. Yeah, or the dog. I know I've really been into like the hoof cleaning videos, the hoof. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I love like the sheep shearing, the hoof cleaning, the carpet washing, the lawn mowing. Don't get me started
Yeah.
on the lawn mowing videos. I'm a complete nut over those. I don't know why.
Yeah. Or like even when I vacuum with the lines, like well, we have tile in this house, but when you have
Yeah,
carpet and you can see the line, you're like, oh, I see it. Like that is very
I
satisfying
see it.
for
I
some
know
reason,
it
as my
is.
son
It's
would say.
crazy. It's crazy. I try to veer away from the exercise videos and sort of like and then the Amazon haul videos where you're like, oh yes, oh I want all those things for my house. And I think, why? You don't need any of those things. Delete,
Yeah, I
So
have
yeah,
plenty. Yeah, back
yeah.
to the library systems, I was going to say
Sure,
that is the one
sure.
great thing about being a military spouse is usually I'll try to keep my library card from our last duty station as long as I can. So then as audiobooks, I can get, or ebooks, I can go through the Libby app or Cloud Library, whatever they use.
Yeah,
Then eventually it runs out and they're like, you need to come in and show your address, which I clearly don't have anymore. And I clearly don't even live at that address. So I'm like, I can't do that.
yeah,
But it is
yeah.
beautiful because I
Oh,
usually
that's
have
funny.
two to three. And San Diego has two library systems, which is, I've
Oh,
never lived in an area like that, which before I even knew that, we returned books to the wrong, like the county library versus the public library, and they're not the same system. And
oh,
I was like, oh,
oh
but
no.
now it's a blessing because there's I can pull from so many different
Oh,
sources.
that's great.
Yeah.
That is
So,
really great. Yeah,
but I'm like, kids,
yeah. My
light up the
library is
public
really
library
tiny.
books, light up the county library books. We got to go to two.
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, we
So,
have a tiny little beach library. I live in two places, but in
okay.
Florida, we live on Melbourne Beach. Our library is tiny, but it has a ton of great books, which is really fun. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
that works out really well.
it
Well,
does.
you have brought
Mhm.
three books with you today in the form of a
Oh,
book
yes.
flight. Can you tell us how you chose these books?
So, in thinking through Track of Courage, which is set in Alaska, I pulled three books that sort of influenced the themes of those that book. And the first one is an old Nora Roberts book called
Okay.
Northern Lights. And I love this story. Nora sometimes gets a little bit on the R-rated side for me, but
Okay.
this particular book was not bad. And it's set in Alaska, and it's about a woman who is a bush pilot who moves to Alaska, and she is there to, I'm trying to remember if that's, yes, and she is there to live there for the year. And while she's there, she encounters a mystery. And there's a cop in town. And I'm trying to remember, it was so long ago, if
Yeah.
she's the cop and he's the bush pilot. I don't know. I can't
Yeah.
remember. But
It gets mixed
anyway,
up.
what yeah, what I remember about it is the community. She does a really great job of building community. All these different people that really kind of are, big set pieces in the community that you kind of feel are real. And I really love the community, that part of it. And so
Yeah.
when I was building my stuff in northern Alaska, actually it was mid-Alaska near Denali, I created a community called Copper Mountain, and all these people that are in it. And I've been working those stories for quite some time, all of different family groups
Yeah.
and search and rescue teams or whatever. And so now and then I kind of, in this particular book, there's a community that these people stay at. And so I kind of build that community out of that book as well. So really loved that book. It's a very big book, and it encompasses 4 seasons, and it has a mystery in it and
Oh,
romance. And yeah, it's a good story.
okay. So that was that Northern Lights, right? I don't know that we said
Northern
that. So
Lights by
Northern Lights yeah.
Nora Roberts. Yeah.
Okay,
So the next
perfect.
one was Nashville Dreams. Actually, is it Nashville Dreams? Nashville Sweetheart is the second one in the series. And that
Okay.
was by Rachel Houck. And that's an older book too, but it's a fabulous story about a country music star who falls in love with just a regular guy. And it's about her life and what it means to be a star, and how is her life affected by her fame, and what happens as a result of this. And there's some great, backstory in it, but also what does it mean to just fall in love with a regular guy when you're a pop star? And so,
Yeah.
I've been kind of swept up in the whole interesting Taylor Swift, thing. And I'm really happy that she's getting married. That's really sweet. But I'm really was like, okay, what would it be like if she didn't fall in love with a football star? Like,
Yeah.
what if she fell in love with like the coffee guy down the street? What would that
Oh,
look like? And so it's a little bit of a Notting Hill kind of story with Hugh Grant and
yeah.
I think it's Julie Roberts. And so anyway, but Nashville Sweetheart is very much kind of like that story. So
Oh,
I
okay.
love Rachel's writing. She's actually my writing partner, and I just love her
Oh,
stories. And this is an older one, but it's a great story that helped inform the journey of Keely, my heroine, who is a mega pop star, and just kind of what her life would have been like. So that was really good.
yeah. I have to read this one because I love her books. I have not read this
Yes,
one yet, though. But every time I read, I'm like, oh, that was so good. I want to read another. So,
I know.
Nashville
I
Sweethearts.
despair of ever writing again when I read a Rachel Hawk book. I'm all like, oh, that was so well said. Oh, that was so well said. And I'm like, sometimes I feel like, she's so literary. She's such a poet. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, and I just write, he sat on the stairs or something.
You got the
Anyway, she
page
would have written
turning.
it better.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But I try to, but my stories are, different, right? So
Yeah.
she writes these beautiful lyrical romances, and I just love to sink into them. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Well,
all right.
thank
So
you.
the third one, I really struggled because when I struggled, I said I've read so many of these kind of stories, but I'm going to pull the book I've been reading most recently from the library,
Okay.
which is a Catherine Center book, What You Wish For. And she's
Yeah.
a secular author. She keeps it pretty clean. They have, your typical secular romance, but it's
Yeah.
fairly closed door, so that's good. But mostly I love this story because it is about a man who's gone through a terrible traumatic experience, really traumatic, and how it completely changed him,
Yeah.
and to the point where he doesn't even recognize himself anymore, and what happens to pull him back to who he was and maybe a better version of himself. So it's, obviously that's kind of the theme of this story, is that, these things that happen to people that cause them to reevaluate their lives and how they're changed by that. He has PTSD. My hero has PTSD. So there was some of that. in there. And I really felt like it was a great reminder that, when we do go through traumatic experiences, and I've been talking about my knee, but we had a huge traumatic experience many, many years ago, 20 some years ago, when we were living in Russia as missionaries. We had a home invasion. And thankfully, nobody was seriously injured, and we had to be pulled out of the country, and some different things happened, and it was
Oh,
very traumatic. And I had a bit of PTSD as a result of that, and
yeah.
thankfully, I've been sort of healed from that. But it's taken a while, and I remember our therapist saying things are going to look different for you for a while. It's going to look, your life will look different, the world will look different, your behavior will look different. You won't recognize some of the
Yeah.
things that you're doing because of this, and your journey is to figure out to how to move past this, and but also knowing that it's kind of made you a different person, right?
Yeah.
And who you are today. So not being afraid of the new person, but saying, okay, how do I understand this new experience in my life and the fabric of my life, and how does that inform me as I move forward into this new season, right? So
Yeah.
so yeah. So anyway, so those are my three books. That one's
Yeah.
called What You Wish For by Catherine Center. And she's a
Perfect.
great author. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for bringing those books with you. I appreciate
Sure.
you bringing them. The listeners always love to know what the guests are reading, so it's that's
Sure.
the part they're always looking forward to in the show. But in saying that, so I was a guest like way back on episode 13. I had my husband interview me. I thought, oh, this will be fun. I had the hardest time picking the third book as well because I had the first
Mm.
two right away to kind of get the theme I was going to go for with the flight. But then there were so many other books I could have put in that one that I struggled as
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah, yeah, it's hard, especially since there are so many. Like I was like, which books do I pick? Like the
yeah,
ones that I love. Like I have so many great authors that I love. Is it the books that fit this, book?
yeah,
It's like, yeah, that's a hard one. I mean, what we need to have is a book smorgasbord, right?
yeah.
I need like 30.
I know. I've added
So,
on the like dessert pairing where you could add
uh-huh.
a little dessert pairing to
Ooh.
your flight, and then that gives you a fourth option if you
Mm.
absolutely like. I couldn't narrow it down to three. It gives a fourth
I
potential,
have to
but
think about that.
we don't
I
always
have to
use it.
think.
So
Yes. Well,
yeah,
if I was going to pick a fourth, I'd pick the one that changed my life the most, which is, of course, Redeeming Love
yes,
by Francine
Francine
Rivers. I mean,
Rivers.
that book
Yes,
for me was told me that fiction could be as powerful, if more powerful
yeah,
than, a nonfiction book. It changed me from the inside out. It made me believe that God loved me. I mean, I wasn't the same person as the character, but I think everybody needs to know that God loves them, regardless
yeah,
of who they are and what their past is, right?
yeah,
And I just loved that. I loved the parallel of the romance. I just loved everything about it. So
yeah.
that was the book that really. So I wasn't a novelist when that book came out, and that was the
Okay,
book that made me go, I wonder if I could write stories. Maybe not as good as
yeah,
that, but write stories that change lives.
yeah,
And I was already a missionary at the time. We were living in Russia and Siberia, and so somebody had sent me that book, and I was like, "What's this?" And I read it, and I was like, "Holy cow!" And so
yeah.
then I realized, okay, maybe God was calling me to do something in a different missionary vein than what I was doing before. So
Yeah,
anyway,
what an
yeah.
impactful book for sure.
Hmm.
Where
Yeah.
in your like I you have lived all over the world and I didn't ask this, but where has been your favorite place you've lived?
Well, I really have only lived in Russia and
Okay.
in Minnesota. So in
Okay.
terms of living, we've stayed. Like my son was
Okay.
born in Alaska, but we've traveled all over. We've been
Yeah.
all over the world for traveling, and some of for missions work, some of it for personal
Sure.
enjoyment. And so I don't know. I mean, my husband's often said he wants to move to Italy, and I like Italy, but it's beautiful, but I don't necessarily want to live there. I think I would get really fat. There'd be wine and pasta every day, and
Yeah.
it'd be dangerous. I really love France. France is gorgeous, and some of my best times have been spent in France. I love Prague, Czech Republic is gorgeous. Um, so yeah, I don't know, but I really have enjoyed. I think that there's a thing where you just say, I love this because of this, right? So like
Yeah.
everything has its own joy. Like I loved living in northern Minnesota. I love the seasons that we had there. I love living in Minneapolis because it's Minneapolis and it's gorgeous and we have a lot of friends there. So, everything
Yeah.
has been great. I even love Florida. We live about 7 minutes by bike from the beach.
Yeah.
And so we biked over there and yeah, it's great. So I've been very, very blessed to enjoy many, many different places in the world. I'm
Yeah.
very
As
grateful for
having
that.
moved a lot myself, I feel like it's the same, right? There was different, like, it's hard to compare like apples to oranges, like I'm like,
Hmm. Hmm.
my two favorites have been Sicily or Hawaii, but they're not the same. And I wouldn't live there
Right,
forever, but I did love them
right.
for the time we got there, right? Like it just
Yeah.
is. So I understand
Yeah,
what you're saying in
that's
that.
awesome. It's so
Yeah.
great that you got to experience them. Like when we went to Sicily, we were there for 6 weeks. So obviously it's
You
not
got
the
to really
same as
see.
living there, but we were there
Yeah.
for a hot minute, and kind of really got to enjoy it. So it's kind of fun to be able to be someplace for a while and
Yeah.
really kind
Versus
of
a
get to know
weekend
it.
trip, I don't think you get the feel too much
Hmm.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
for
how I
sure.
love to end our show is with our speed questions you can answer really quick. Are you a
Okay.
rereader?
Yes, but I love to reread. And sometimes I know this sounds crazy, but sometimes I reread my own books because I'm so intent on working on them when I'm
Yeah,
writing them and editing them that I don't read them for enjoyment.
that makes
So
sense.
like a year or two or five later, I'll be like, oh, I'm going to read this, and then
Yeah.
I kind of remember the joy of writing it. So that's I know a kind of a indulgent guilty pleasure, but it's what I do.
Yeah, I love it. Where is your favorite place to read?
So I have a little nook in my bedroom. It's this is funny. I got an old recliner off of Facebook Marketplace for free, and I put this big, huge blanket on it. It's got Jamie Fraser's face on it because that's I don't know, and
Yeah,
so I put it on there, and I have a little overhead lamp. That's where I read. It's just
love it.
crazy. So anyway, it's not fancy, but it's
Sounds
fun.
comfy. Yeah. Lastly, what are you reading next?
Oh, I am reading. I'll tell you what I'm reading. I did bring this one. I'm reading Gabriel
Yes.
Meyer's Timeless series. I
Yeah.
love it. She's a good friend of mine, and I knew her
Yeah.
before she was ever published. She's a hard worker, and she has really done something with these Timeless series books. I love them.
Yes.
I endorsed the first one and am sucked into all of them. And so anyway, I just purchased this one because I was like I didn't want to read them on e-readers anymore because I wanted to own it.
I know.
So anyway, I'm a little bit behind because I think she's got book 6 or 7 out now. I don't remember. And but anyway, it's well worth your time. Great. She's a great writer, really knows her history, and she does such a great job with this concept. It's
Yeah.
really good.
It's really taken it by storm. I think
Yeah, so
that
it's
that
called
series.
Across the, yeah, she has. She's
Yeah.
really done a great job. So it's called Across the Ages by Gabriel Meyer. That's what I'm reading. It's the Timeless series, and she has a brand new book out this week, I believe. So, or recently. No, maybe not. Maybe it was like a couple months ago, now that I
Okay.
think about it.
Yeah, I think I know it just came out. It was the other one with
Mhm.
that. Yeah. I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
well, we'll get that right for the show notes. So, well, thank you so much for coming on the show
great.
with me today. I know your time is precious and I appreciate all you've given me.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been really fun to chat with you, and I just really appreciate you highlighting Track of Courage, and just it's really fun to talk about the journey of our characters and where God takes us in our lives as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for listening to this episode today with Susan May Warren, including her book flight of books that influenced the writing of Track of Courage. We'd love for you to check out all the books that we talked about today at bookishflights.com. If you enjoyed the show, please head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review. Your review not only helps the show, but it also helps the podcast to reach others. Make sure you are subscribed on Apple Podcasts or Spotify to make sure you will not miss an episode. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. As Emma Thompson said, I think books are like people in the sense that they'll turn up in your life when you most need them. Cheers to you, dear readers. Until next time.